Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the PSBlue podcast, the 40th most popular podcast on PlayStation, according to myself. I'm joined by my co-host and cousin, Vinny. Vinny, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good, Anthony. How about yourself?
I'm good. Are you playing anything fun lately, or what's
Dude,
your game schedule?
I've been diving into Crash 4.
Okay.
Diving into it. I probably have a good 8 hours in this game right now for the
Oh,
last week.
nice.
So I don't want to spoil my impressions because I know we're going to talk about that soon, but definitely have a lot to say about that game for sure.
Cool. I'm working my way through some different games, trying to. Sometimes I get distracted, and not one single game holds my attention. And right now, I'm bouncing in between Ghost of Tsushima and Cyberpunk 2077, and
Any
I haven't
thoughts?
really. What was that?
Any thoughts on those games?
I really like Cyberpunk 2077. I think it's really good. Uh, it took an extra year plus to get the game in a state worth playing, but I had the PS4 version, I returned it, and then with the like offer that Sony had, and then I decided to give it another shot when it went on sale for PS5 when the true next gen version came out, and I have to say I'm pleasantly surprised. Um,
Really? That's
yeah,
good to hear.
yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about it for now. But we got a jam-packed episode today, so we should just dive right in. Just to let you guys know, today's talking points include PlayStation Plus new tiers, Nickelodeon All Stars Brawl, PlayStation 5 paid upgrades, Bloodborne knockoffs, a frame rate discussion, and for your consideration, which is a segment we will describe when we get to it. But first, if you missed last episode, here's the quote of the episode. This is from Vinny regarding the opening to Kingdom Hearts 2. And this is a direct quote. Arguably the most boring gameplay that I've ever experienced in my entire life. Vinny, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you want to defend yourself?
Do I have any thoughts on the quote?
Yes.
I I don't think the quote justifies just how boring the opening sequence of Kingdom Hearts 2 is. Kingdom Hearts 2, I mean, man, can I get any lower with that intro to that game? It is so bad. That might be the worst. Oh, how long does that sequence last? It lasts
I don't
probably
know, a few
2
hours.
hours. It
I think
lasts
it's more
2
than that.
hours. It lasts 2 hours, but it feels like 8. It is so boring. You are doing I mean, seriously, and what's really sad about that sequence is I've played it so many times because I love that game. You know, when you play games over and over again, as I'm sure both of us have Kingdom Heart, both of all. No, I wouldn't say all three of the Kingdom Hearts games, but particularly the first two. The as many times as I've played the second Kingdom Hearts game, it's like, man, I got to get through that opening sequence, and it's just the worst. It is truly terrible. So if I were to, judge that quote, I would say it's an understatement for sure.
You wish you could have had some more
I
harsh words. Is that what you're saying?
I wish my vocabulary was expanded in a way that I could just destroy the opening sequence of that game. It is really, really bad. My goodness. Oh God. Don't even
I
get me
don't get
started
it.
on that.
I don't
It's
get
so
it.
bad. You like it? So you enjoy that going
I don't
around
like it, but it's not that.
you're mowing people's lawns. You're doing things that do not mean anything. You're skateboarding around town. It is so boring. It is awful. And it's like, my goodness, can I just go to a Disney World? I'm playing this to go to just show me a Disney character. I don't know who these characters are. You're playing as Roxas. You have no idea who this guy is. He's got the overweight friend. Can I get to Disney World, please? I'm tired of this, and it's 2.5 hours of that. It's terrible.
Oh
It
my
is the
god.
worst of Kingdom Hearts. It is the worst that it has to offer, and it's such a shame because that game is fantastic for the rest of the way.
Okay.
Once you get through the opening sequence, don't even
Wow.
get me started.
I struck
I
a
can't
chord.
believe.
I didn't
Yeah,
I didn't know you
you
were gonna
really
be
did.
so passionate. All right. So the first thing we're gonna talk about today is the as I'm sure most of you by now know, the PlayStation Plus upgrade launch that will happen in June. Now, this is to compete with Xbox Game Pass. Um, they've been, pretty transparent about it, but we have a new 3-tiered PlayStation Plus system. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to break it down. This is from PlayStation Blog. We have PlayStation Plus Essential, which is the same benefits that PlayStation Plus members are getting today, such as 2 monthly downloadable games, exclusive discounts, cloud storage for saved games, and online multiplayer access. There are no changes for existing PlayStation Plus membership in this tier. That's from PlayStation Blog. This is from PlayStation Blog, like I said. Then we move on to PlayStation Plus Extra. This is $14.99. I forgot to mention Essentials $9.99. Same thing. $9.99 a month. PlayStation Plus Extra is $14.99 a month. And this adds all the benefits from the Essential tier, plus a catalog of up to 400 of the most enjoyable PS4 and PS5 games, including blockbuster hits from our PlayStation Studios catalog and third-party partners. Games in the extra tier are downloadable for play. So it's a downloadable experience. I don't think you can stream these games, is what I'm gathering from the site. Then finally, for $17.99 a month, these are all USD, by the way, which is another $3 a month. You get all the benefits from essential and extra tiers, and it says on their site, it adds up to 340 additional games, including PS3 games available via cloud streaming, a catalog of beloved classic games available in both streaming and download options from the original PlayStation, PS2, and PSP generations. Offers cloud streaming access from original PlayStation, PS2, PSP, and PS4 games offered in the extra and premium tiers in the market. Time-limited game trials will also be offered in this tier, so customers can try select games before they buy. $17.99 a month. $8 more expensive than what we're paying now per month. And that's it. Sorry that was a mouthful, but I wanted to make sure that we were thorough about what these 3 tiers are, because to me it's a bit of a mess. What do you have to say, Vinny?
Gosh, I think a bit of a mess is an understatement. This is, man, I have so many thoughts about this. I think the first thing that I think of is obviously they're trying to compete with Game Pass. I think we can both agree there. I think this is clearly a sort of response to what Game Pass is offering, and to me, this doesn't come close to what Game Pass offers. It just doesn't, and it's a shame. I don't think that PlayStation needs a Game Pass. I don't think that they needed to do this. I really don't. I think that this confuses the
Interesting.
player base. I really do. I think it confuses the player base. I think the games Microsoft has to do Game Pass because let's be honest, their game they don't they don't release 10 out of 10 games once every 6 months like Sony does. Sony has a I think it's universally known that Sony's quality of games in terms of their first party studios are better right now than that of Microsoft's. I think that's a known thing. I think that most people could probably agree with that.
I agree.
I don't think that they needed to do this. I don't understand why they did this. I think it just confuses the tier. All these tiers. What are we doing? 3 tiers? We don't
Yeah.
need 3 tiers. This is confusing. It's you're reading this, and I'm trying to follow along with what you're sending with what you're saying, but it's just, and that's straight from the PS blog,
Yeah.
and the communication has been very poor. I haven't really heard a whole lot about this. I play on my PlayStation pretty much every single day, and they're not really advertising this. I just man, this just seems like something that it just doesn't seem like the right response to Game Pass. I don't think that they needed to do it. I think that Microsoft is kind of forced to do it because they don't have anything to offer.
Yeah,
And
but they
Game
will.
Pass is sure,
They
and
will.
Microsoft has. Mhm. Go ahead.
Bethesda, you have the Bethesda acquisition, the all the other studios that Microsoft has acquired. They will start to get these, first party, really really high quality games. Although I will say Starfall and what is it called, like Red Matter or something like that.
Yeah,
Two of the games
it's called Redfall. Redfall, I think, is the game name. It's a
isn't it
vampire game.
Starfall
Yeah,
though?
isn't it? It's boy, it's one of those. It's one of those combinations of words we just
Yeah,
can't think of
Red.
it.
It's I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyway, they
it's
both
Red
got delayed.
something.
They both got delayed. But the games are coming, and I think Sony needs to do something. I don't think. I think you're right. I don't think they needed to necessarily respond to Game Pass, uh, one for one sort of a monthly subscription service thing, and it seems like PlayStation's philosophy up until now was just let the games do all the talking. You know what I mean? We like you
Yeah,
said, we have better first party games, day and night difference between PlayStation and Microsoft, which is why we are fans of Sony. Now, I mean, to be transparent, you have Game Pass, right? I don't, but you do, right?
I do. I do. That's correct. Yeah, and it's fantastic.
Okay, what is fantastic about it? Is it the quality of games or the quantity of games?
I think it's a combination of both. I
Okay.
really do. It truly is a combination of both of those factors. Let me just say this real quick because if I think if I was in charge of Sony and sort of this, you know, um, in this scenario, right? If it were me, I probably would have waited and seen if Microsoft could actually do it. Can they release games on this platform that are our quality? Are they tens out of tens? Microsoft has yet to do this, and you just said Redfall, whatever this game is called that we're talking about, that game got delayed. Starfield got delayed. You could likely bet that that game was probably buggy. Bethesda is known.
Starfield. That's what it
Bethesda
is.
is known, yeah, and Redfall is the other game I think that got delayed.
Yeah.
It's like a vampire game that they're making right now. But I would just sit back and wait. Can you prove this to me? Is this actually profitable for Microsoft? I think it's known that it's not. There's no possible way that it could be profitable. Maybe in the long term, I would be really interested to see those numbers, but if I were Sony, I would have just sat back and waited. Can you prove it to me? You have not proven this to me over the last 5 years that you could consistently deliver games the way that we do. So
So
go ahead.
your response is to do nothing. Is that what you're saying, more or less?
Yes, yes,
Wow.
I firmly believe this. Let me say this. This is not the answer. I don't think a 3 tier system that is really confusing, really confusing to the consumer base
It is
is the
confusing.
answer for Sony. I don't think this is the answer. It's way too confusing. It's too many. It's and then also I don't know about you. I'm actually interested to see how streaming games how popular is streaming games right now. I still don't think that it's at that point that it's worth the extra money to okay,
No,
I want to be able to stream those games. I don't necessarily know how large that player base is that's interested in streaming games. I know we're not. Hardcore gamers are usually not from what I from the people that I talk to, from what I hear, they're not interested in streaming games because obviously there's a level delay there. There's issues with it that are built into it. So what are your thoughts on streaming games and if that's worth it? I'm curious.
I think it's pretty obvious what they're doing here. They just added they have a cloud streaming service, right? It's part of
Hmm.
their brand. It's a PlayStation Now is something that they offer, and the numbers are probably not really great. I think the numbers got better on PlayStation Now when they gave you the option to download the games, right? Um,
Hmm.
but they invested a ton of money in this, and they need to they don't want to kill the service, so they're just bundling it in with PlayStation Plus Premium to give you extra value for the $3 uptick from 14.99 to 17.99. That's what I think. It's just otherwise the only other thing that I see on here that really I'm interested in is the time limited game trials. Uh, it says, I'll read it again. Time limited game trials will also be offered in this tier so customers can try select games before they buy. Now, if those are new games. Let's say, a very, very specific game like Ghostwire Tokyo. I haven't played that yet. I want to try that game before I spend $70 on it. If that's something that this service is providing, to me, that's worth $3 extra.
Interesting. Interesting. I tend to agree with you on that in that respect, where game trials to me are a little bit of isolated occurrences. I don't see myself downloading, I don't know, more than two game trials maybe per year. That to me is not a selling point. Getting access to game trials just isn't. And like you said, I'm curious to see what those time frames are. What do I have access to? How long do I have access to it? Do I have access to, I don't know, Shovel Knight, which takes 6 hours to beat? How long, how long's that game trial? I'm curious, right?
Yeah,
Something like
it's
that.
it's very
Obviously
vague.
it's based. Yeah, and obviously it'll probably be based on the game, the length of that game. I would imagine that the developers have some kind of say in how long that game trial is. But I think you're right, where it's a dying platform, the PlayStation Now service. It's just kind of sitting there. Not a lot of people are, from what I know, are using it. I think it's great to have that offering to consumers. Hey, here's an ability, here's a way to stream our games, just in case if you need that access. I've actually played PlayStation games on my iPad before, and it was pretty cool. I played it for about 5 minutes, and I said, all right, I've seen enough of this. I'm gonna go turn on my PlayStation and play this without lag and without
And actually
without
play
frame
it.
rate issues. Yeah, okay, this is cool. All right, I'm ready to go back to my PlayStation. That's basically what happened, and it was cool. It was a cool experience. I don't think that we're there yet from a, what do you refer to it as, a broadband with whatever it is, an internet, you
Just
know
technologically speaking.
technologically
Yeah.
speaking. Exactly. I don't I
Yeah.
We're not there yet, and I think that this was an investment by Sony that probably thought that we would be there by now. And now I think it was Gaikai, I think is the technology company that is
Yeah.
behind PlayStation Now. I think they're Gaikai, right? And they
Yes.
made that investment a long time ago.
During
So
like
they're
PS3, I think.
probably, and they're getting no profit from what they invested in this company, I'm
Right.
sure. So
Right.
why not just clump this in with PlayStation? And I hate to be so negative, because I'm always PlayStation makes a lot of good decisions, but with this instance, let's just clump it in with our tier system that doesn't, honestly, it really does confuse the consumer base, and it's just, there's not a whole lot of selling points here for me. There isn't. Whereas Game Pass, $15 a month, you're getting access to these games day one, which is the selling point. You're also getting better, from right now, from what we've seen with the tier system. There's better third party partnerships. Look at Back for Blood was available day one on Game Pass. That's a game that, are we going to see games like this on this tier system? I
I
don't know
really
if we
hope not.
are.
I
I don't
really
think
hope
we
not.
will.
Well,
I
I
don't
don't
think
think
so.
I can't find it right now, but I'm pretty sure Sony uh they mentioned something about not putting their first party games on there. Uh I'm paraphrasing heavily, but they don't want to put the stink of subscription based games on their first party exclusives. And that was the next point I was going to bring up. I kind of agree with that. And I was wondering, like, does it take away from the experience of the game for you when you're getting it for, lack of a better word, free? Because it's not free, you got to pay for the subscription, but it's free. You don't think about that money coming out of your
Yes.
account.
Yeah. It's a great question. I think that Microsoft knows, from what they've said, from what we've heard from Phil Spencer, I think he knows that this is a huge problem on the platform. Look at Halo Infinite. Just look at all of the issues that we've seen with this game following its launch. A pretty decent campaign, but essentially, like you said, a live service, which I think is a red flag in a lot of gamers' minds. I think that Microsoft is trying to push, in a way, that live service perspective. I think they're trying to push those live service games to get more money and try and get, profitable. But I do think that Microsoft is in a completely different scenario than Sony, where Microsoft has essentially a limitless bank account. They can, I mean,
Right.
they can do whatever they want. They have so
Yeah.
much money. Sony doesn't have access to those kinds of funds, so they have to be more deliberate with what they do. They have to be more, not just spend frivolously. Not to say that Microsoft is, but kind of really, really, you know, think about they don't have that ability to make those sort of third party partnerships where they can release these games day one. They just don't have that kind of money right now. They just don't. Whereas Microsoft can essentially, I mean, buy whoever they want. Look at what they did with Activision, which is just insane.
Yeah.
So I think they're
Activision,
just
that was a big
entirely,
one.
yeah, they're just companies in different states right now. I just think that this tier system just to me is not the answer. I think we both agree with that. I do think that they need an answer. I will say that they do need an answer. They're going to need an answer. They just didn't need one right now, because if I'm Sony, I'm waiting for, not waiting. I shouldn't say waiting because that's probably the wrong term, but I'm cautiously kind of keeping my eye on when is Microsoft going to release a game that launches on that platform that is a 10 out of 10 hour quality of game. When is that going to happen?
I
Because it
haven't
just
played
hasn't yet.
I haven't played all of these games because I don't have a next gen Xbox. I don't have Game Pass. I have a computer that can play most of those games, but I don't have Game Pass. I had it at one point, but in my very limited experience, and I think that you'll agree with me, I don't think they've done that. I don't think they've released a 10 out of 10 game. Even Halo Infinite wasn't, like you said, it's more of a live service thing, and it's not, I don't know, like, can you back me up on that? Have they
No,
released a game that you're looking at like that's at the same quality level of
I
Horizon or uh Uncharted 4 or um I don't know, even like a Ghostwire Tokyo? I haven't played that, but it's just it's got a more, you know, it just feels different. I don't know what I'm trying to
It
say here.
does. It does. No, I know exactly what you're trying to say. And that game to me was Starfield, if I'm being honest with you, and
Okay.
that just got delayed. So to me, it's saying Microsoft, I think, knows right now that they have to release these games at a very high level of quality on their platform, because there is a huge problem with their games being released on this platform, whether it be Halo Infinite. I'm trying to think of others. They partner with MLB The Show. I know they have a huge partnership there. Things like
That's a
that.
crazy
These
story
sort of,
because that's a Sony owned studio.
it is insane.
The fact that
It is
that
truly
happened
insane.
is still
It's
anyway.
mind-boggling. Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
go
it
on.
is. It is really, really crazy. But I think right now Microsoft is in a state where they're willing to delay these games. Look at Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite was supposed to launch with the Series X. That got delayed by a year,
That
and
was
it's
supposed to be a
still
launch
launched.
game.
And it's still launched in the state that it's in now, which a lot of players are saying is unfinished. The multiplayer is very, I mean, it's there's nothing else to do. You can play through everything essentially in that multiplayer in a short time frame. So yeah, that was originally supposed to be a launch day exclusive. That got delayed by an entire year, and they're still falling behind. So I
Wow.
think that Sony knows that they don't want to be in that sort of situation where these live service games can be a huge problem if you don't do it right. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head a live service game that does it right. Could you think of one? I'm genuinely trying to think.
Um, Destiny 2 is supposed to be one
Yes,
of those,
that
from
was
what
one
I've
that went
heard.
to my mind. Yeah,
Uh,
Destiny 2 is supposed to be really good for sure.
as
I
far as
haven't
I
played that.
understand it, No Man's Sky is also supposed to be one. But those are both
Sure.
multi-platform games. Those are both multi-platform games.
And look at all the hate that No Man's Sky got when it launched.
Yeah, it
You
was an
know what I mean?
anomaly.
Like,
That game was
yeah,
an anomaly that it
exactly.
survived.
And it did. It really did. And kudos to that studio for sticking with it and updating that game and making it really special. But I just don't
So
see this as the answer. I really
what
don't. This three-tier system, no way.
Yeah, one final thing that I will say about this three-tier system, and then we need to move on. But I wanted to quickly say the two games that you get right now on PlayStation Plus have not been very good. Like they've either been games that are so old that everybody has them, or a very specific game like FIFA 2022, which is great. If you love soccer, you already have that game though. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly. Exactly.
um UFC 4, these are games if you're a fan of UFC, you've already purchased that game. Anyway, I could go on and on and on.
I
The
couldn't agree
game
more, though. Couldn't agree more.
the game quality is declining for the PlayStation Plus free games of the month. So what's going to happen when they're trying to pump up the sales for the $15 tier and the $18 tier for PlayStation Plus? The essential category of games, I feel, is going to suffer even more. You're going to get like I don't even know. You're going to get the worst quality possible games at the PlayStation Plus free games of the month essential level. You know what I mean? At least that's my
Yeah.
guess.
I think the answer to not harp on this too long, but the answer is look at when they invested in Fall Guys. And Fall Guys was the launch. That was a free PlayStation Plus game. I think that is the answer for Sony. Kind of investing in these smaller studios that are really doing something special, and investing in them and allowing them to kind of see their creation. And I think that's the route that they should go. Not necessarily going to these bigger games that these live services. I don't see that as the answer. This is really bizarre. I couldn't believe that they that they went to this 3-tier system. It's really crazy.
I think you put it very well, though. I think you're absolutely right. Microsoft has way more funds than Sony does. So Sony needs to be deliberate. Every decision they make matters that much more because they can't afford to make bad decisions. They just can't. Microsoft can. Microsoft had a terrible, you know, time last generation of consoles and they got out of it because they were like, well, we'll just dump a bunch of money into this subscription service and force our value onto these people so they have no choice but to subscribe and join the Xbox side of things. You know, I think at the end of the day, Sony will be fine, but I'm I tend to agree with you that they should have just waited a little longer and sort of seen what happened. This is a very transparent play by Sony, and it's very concerning how confusing this 3-tier system is. But enough about that. Let's get into something a little bit more fun, and that is Nickelodeon All Stars Brawl. So this game is, if you haven't seen it yet, a let's just say it. It's a Smash Bros knockoff, but the catch is it's all Nickelodeon characters. It's not the greatest game in the world. I've played it a few times, but it's fun. It's fun to like run around as Reptar or people from Real Monsters and beat people up as these characters. It's fun. There's something about it that's just fun. And what I like is that they haven't given up on it yet. We were just talking about No Man's Sky. We were talking about Destiny 2 and games that have sort of a rocky release, and this game is certainly one of them, but they're still bringing new content to the table. Garfield was a free downloadable character. That's really cool. Then they released this video on May 13th that announced 3 new characters. The first one they're releasing is Jenny, XJ9 from My Life as a Teenage Robot. She is out right now. Hugh Neutron, which is a huge fan favorite, no pun intended, is going to be available this summer. And Rocco from Rocco's Modern Life will be available in the fall, according to the video that Nickelodeon released. Vinny, what Nickelodeon characters would you want to play as in this game, other than Hugh Neutron? Because that's just great. That's just so much fun.
Man,
It makes me want to buy the game
such
on PlayStation.
such a good DLC character, Hugh Neutron. I think that is, man. I mean, if I was to think, like, man, what a love letter to the fan base to release Hugh Neutron in this game. I think that's awesome. And like you said, I love games like this where the developers, I think, have some, they genuinely care about their game, and its longevity. And man, there's so many places that they could go with this. Because when you actually look at Nickelodeon and all of the characters that they made, there's so many of them, so many iconic characters. But my mind immediately went, and I haven't played this game, so I'll be very upfront there. Have
I've
not
only
played
played
this
it once.
game. You've only played it once. Okay,
Yeah.
so I haven't played this game. I looked at their roster, and my mindset was this was already a character. I had thought that there's no way that this isn't a character, and then looking at their roster, I was like, man, like how in the hell is this not a character? How are the Fairly Odd Parents not a character in this game?
Oh my god. You're
What the
right.
hell is going on here? I could think of the
Cosmo and
move
Wanda.
set in a heartbeat. Cosmo and Wanda, easily swappable skins, and you can make them a pair. I don't care. Get them in this game. These are icons. These
They
are
could be like ice
there's
climbers.
the, oh my god, could be exactly like ice climbers, the magical ice climbers.
Yeah.
That is
I,
where my mindset went. Is where the hell are the Fairly Odd Parents? Where are they? Where's Vicky? Where's Icky Vicky?
well, they
Put
do
her in the
have.
game.
Wait, do they
Icky
have
Vicky?
any? They don't have any. Let me. I'm
I
pulling
don't
up the
think they have
roster right
anybody. I
now.
didn't see anybody. I'm sitting here I'm looking at the roster. I'm
Okay, so
like, where's the dad?
they have some pretty obvious ones. They have oh, Dinkelberg. Oh, that would be great. Dinkelberg fighting Timmy's dad, whatever his name is.
Yes. Yes.
so
Oh,
so
it's
we
so
have
good.
SpongeBob SquarePants, Patrick Star, Sandy Cheeks, Leonardo, Michelangelo, April O'Neil, Shredder, Lincoln Loud, Lucy Loud. Do you know what the Loud House is? I don't even know what that is.
No clue.
Uh, Rugrats. Reptar is the only one representing Rugrats. We have Helga Pataki, but we don't have Arnold. That's kind of weird. That's kind of
Really
weird.
weird. How?
Uh, Zim and
Very
Gur from
bizarre.
Invader Zim. Ren and Stimpy, Powder Toast Man. That's cool. Ren and Stimpy. That's cool that they have him in there. And Oblina from Ah Real Monsters, the striped one with one eye. I think she has one eye. Let me see. No, she
Maybe.
has
I
two
don't know.
eyes. She has two eyes. But that's cool. That's a cool addition. And then you get some more obvious ones like Aang from Avatar, Korra from The Legend of Korra, you know, Danny Phantom from Danny Phantom. But then you
That's an awesome
have
one.
my personal favorite, Nigel Thornberry. That is amazing. One thing that this game lacks, though, from what I've played and what I've seen, is the character sounds. The characters don't have like their iconic
Oh,
voices and stuff, which is a
oh
huge
no.
thing that makes Smash Bros so good. Is is like what's that one Lucas? What does he say? PK Fire or something like that?
Yeah.
I can't get that
PK
out of my
Fire.
head from playing that. Or all the noises that Mario makes or Star Fox, stuff like that. It's just so cool. That is what the game needs next. That is what they need to bring to that game next.
So they don't have any of the voice actors saying anything
No,
in these games
no,
while you're
not as far
fighting?
as I can tell. Like I said, I only played it once, but I'm pretty sure they don't.
I was going to say that would be an immediate standout. If you're playing a SpongeBob and he doesn't say something that is very obviously SpongeBob. Also, let me just say this. The Crimson Chin. How the hell is he not a character? That's an easy one. That's a freebie, Nicola. The Crimson Chin? Are you kidding me? Fairly do they not know that Fairly Odd Parents is a Nickelodeon property? Because there are so many characters in this show. I love Fairly Odd Parents. Put the Crimson Chin, put Icky Vicky. I don't care. Give me any of
Okay,
them.
okay. I was trying to think of who I wanted to see, and now I know who I want to see. My number one character that I need to see in this game, the Bronze Kneecap.
Yes, the bronze kneecap. Well, if they do the bronze kneecap, they obviously have to do the
Oh
crimson chin. They'd have
man,
to put them both.
this
The
is
bronze kneecap would be very
uh,
good.
this is such a good idea, but they're missing. They have some cool characters that you wouldn't expect, but they're also missing some. How do you not have Tommy Pickles? First of all, how do you not have him and his
Okay,
screwdriver would be a move?
Anthony, I was thinking that, but I that's also where I
Chucky.
went. Was how do we not have any of the Rugrats in here? We have Reptar, but nobody else. But I don't think they could. allow a baby to be on there whacking people around. I don't think that's like a thing. This game's got to be rated, what I'm assuming, E for everyone. You're gonna have a baby walking around whacking people with a screwdriver. I don't know. I don't know. I was thinking that in my head though. I was like, how are none of the Rugrats in here though? Let's make
It,
this a rated M for mature game, and let's get some Rugrats in here.
I
You
think
know,
it's probably even more than that. It's probably a budget thing. I don't think this game has the budget. It's Game Mill Entertainment published it. I've never even heard of them.
yeah, yeah. No
So,
budget
you
from the
know,
videos that I've seen too. It looks like it's very. I don't want to say like I don't want to say a mobile game because I don't that that has negative connotations to it, but it doesn't look like there's a strong budget behind this. So, um,
no, it's missing some elements for sure.
yeah,
But I think
yeah.
that this game is cool. It's a fun game to play, maybe over a couple beers or something like that. And just seeing these characters interact with each other is the main charm of this game. Cosmo and Wanda, Crimson Chin. Now, I want to see the Crimson Chin now, man.
Crimson Chin next DLC. He has to be in there.
And you heard it
Has to
here
be.
first on PS Blue podcast. That's
That's a freebie.
we confirmed it. If they announce the Crimson Chin, they're definitely listening. So uh,
Yes, yes.
that
What
was
did you say the studio was called? Who is it that makes this game?
Game Mill published it, and I don't know. I never know how to say this name. Uh, I'm sorry. Ludosity and Fair Play Labs are the developers.
Okay, so it's sort of a
I was
partnership
looking
here.
at something else. Yeah. So all companies I've never even heard of are making this game that uh, is
Put
it's
Crimson Chin in there.
trying, man. It is. I am rooting for this game. I really am because I just want it to be good so bad, and it's not, but it can be. It can be. Look at, like we said, No Man's Sky and Destiny 2. They both have probably quintuple the budgets of this game, but you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they'll get some money from some of the copies that they sold just based on the licensing, and it seems like they're dumping it back into the game, which is good. Moving on. Unless, did you have anything else to say about
No, just put Crimson Chin in the game and then we'll be happy here. I think we'll call it even then. Maybe I'll play it if they put Crimson. I will play this
that? No,
game if
you
they put
will.
Crimson Chin in it. I will. I'll put my name out there. I will play. What is this game called? Nickelodeon All Stars Battle Royale.
Terrible name, by the way.
Just the
Nick.
longest name ever.
No, that's
But I will play
PlayStation
this
All
game.
Stars Battle Royale is what you're getting it mixed up
Ah, I
with.
was
It's
close.
Nickelodeon All Star Brawl,
Ah,
and
geez,
they're trying to be like
terrible
Smash
name.
Bros. Brawl. I don't know how Nintendo probably doesn't care enough about them to sue them, because they could, the brawl in there, they could probably, you know,
Maybe, yeah, maybe
they
get
might
away
have a
with it.
case
Yeah,
for a
sure,
trademark there, but
sure. Yeah. Well, if you put Crimson Chin in the game, you have my word. I will play this game. I will. I'll throw my name out there. Done
so
deal.
the next thing we're going to talk about is PlayStation 5 paid upgrades. This is something that I've talked to you about privately before, but I want to reiterate and talk about it publicly now. I cannot stand the pay to upgrade path of these PS4 games to PS5. And the most blatant one that I can think of is Ghost of Tsushima. I spent $40 on that game when it came out. When it went on sale, excuse me. It went on sale for $40. It was probably a year and a half since it had been released. And I started playing it. Then they announced the PS5 version, to which I immediately said, I can't play this on PS4 now. I need to see what it's like on PS5. I want to have the haptics on my controller and stuff. Once you start to experience that stuff, you don't want to have it taken away from you if you can help it. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
Ghost of Tsushima comes around and they announce the Iki Island expansion, and it includes the $30 upgrade includes the Iki Island expansion, but it's $30 to go from the PS4 version to the PS5 version. That is just so much money just to upgrade a copy of your game that most people have played by now. That's the other thing. I'm in the minority having not played this game. But most people that are going to upgrade to this $30 upgrade, excuse me, most people that are going to pay for this $30 upgrade will have already played through the game once. So this is a $30 upgrade to replay a game that's 2 years old. It's it's bizarre, man. It really is. Another example is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I absolutely love that game. It is one of my it's on the top 10 list that I made. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, the original. One of my favorite games ever. And I loved the remaster, but they want me to pay $10 to upgrade it from PS4 to PS5. And the game, I'm pretty sure, already runs frame rate wise at 60. I don't even know what I'm paying for. It's a $10 upgrade for just to see the PS5 logo when I boot it up instead of PS4. I really don't understand the difference. Horizon Forbidden West also has two price tags. This is the last example I'll bring up, but there's more and more and more examples like this. It's, to me, Sony's just taking money out of our pockets that I would happily pay for anything else. I don't mind spending extra money on this, but to me, they're nickel and diming us here. What do you think about all this, Vinny?
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement that this is a money grab. I really feel like it's frustrating because I had a similar situation with Death Stranding where Death Stranding has a $10 upgrade. And that's if you own the original PlayStation 4 version, but if you don't, it's going to cost you $70 for the PS5 version. But I wanted to replay that game, and it's like, man, I'm playing this on my PS5. I kind of feel obligated to pay the $10 to go ahead and get this PlayStation 5 version because, am I going to play this PS4 version on my PS5? I don't want to do that. I want the best experience possible. But man, you know, it just feels like a money grab. It really, really does, especially when we look at what Microsoft is doing, which is letting everybody play these games for free. There's free compatibility options. And the most disgusting, for lack of a better term, scenario with regards to this is Horizon Forbidden West, which you brought up. You could have pre-ordered that game for PS4 for $60. You could have pre-ordered it for PS5 for $70. Your PS4 version came with the PS5 version for a free
Right.
upgrade.
I didn't know
So
that.
why would I buy the PS5 version of this game? You are literally just taking $10 to take it. That's it. There's no
Right.
other excuse. And that the only reason that happened was because of blowback from the fan base. Because
Did
people
you
were really pissed off at that.
really? I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
But did you pay 70 or did you pay 60 for that game?
I paid 70 like a
Me
fucking
too.
moron. I
Me too,
paid
like a moron. They got us both, Vinny. They got the entire PSBlue company. They
They
got
got us. They got $20 in total out of our pockets, like a bunch of
it's just
morons.
wrong.
It is. It really is. It's sick, and there's no excuse for it at all. You're just pissing off the fan base. You're pissing off your consumers. It doesn't make any sense. And like I said, Horizon Forbidden West is the worst. And when you have a game like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, like you said, why am I even paying this money? You don't even know why.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have no
Yeah.
clue.
Yeah.
So it's just really sickening to see. It really is. You know, there's a lot of goodwill for Microsoft right now with regards to their consumers, and this is a huge reason why. It's because they're offering these free upgrades for their games, and they're basically saying, no, like, you own the Xbox version, you own the or excuse me, you own the Xbox Series S version or X.
Right.
And
Because
PlayStation is unwilling to do that for one reason or another. They're very stubborn about this. They really are.
it, as I understand it, that's they're part of their smart delivery system, right? Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah. They're calling it smart delivery. Yeah,
So it's just you buy the license for the game. And Vinny's our undercover Microsoft agent, by the way, because
I am.
he knows a lot more
Yeah.
about this than I do. I don't I like I said, I have a gaming computer that I mainly use for video editing, but every once in a while I'll play some PC games, Microsoft, Xbox, whatever. But other than that, I don't know anything about this. So Smart delivery. Interesting. That's I don't know. I don't know. It's not really something you can make an excuse for. Like the only
It
thing you
isn't.
could say is, "Oh, we didn't." Like you could play dumb, I guess, but don't do that. Like if you're gonna take our $10, just say we want your $10. You know what I mean? Don't play dumb. They know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, just say give me your money. Just do that next time.
Right.
Don't
Right.
slap me in the face. That Horizon Forbidden West was the worst though. That one in particular was like, okay, well now you're showing your real color. You're showing your true colors here
It's just
because
so
there's no
bizarre.
reason to be charging consumer. There's no reason. There's none at all. I mean, man, $40 for Ghost of Tsushima upgrade. $30. How much was it?
30. You get the
Ugh.
expansion, but there's no way to get the PS5 version without buying the expansion too. So you have to buy the expansion just to upgrade to PS5. And you're probably exactly like me. Like if you had a game that was on your backlog that you wanted to play and you started playing it and you were really enjoying it and then they announced the PS5 version, you're going to wait for the PS5 version, right?
Yeah, yeah. Why wouldn't I? You have to if you're obligated to.
Right.
It's very unfortunate. It's an unfortunate set of circumstances for sure. Because you're absolutely right. I would just wait. There's no
Yeah.
point. I mean, man, it really is a dicey situation. But man, people will defend Sony, and me and you, we can be classified as Sony fanboys. Sure, we love pretty much everything that they do. This is something that I'm not a fan of whatsoever.
Me
This is
neither.
really
And
frustrating, especially seeing the competitors do it the other way. I know, and like we discussed, Microsoft has piles of money that they have access to. This is still, it's just not something that you should be charging your consumers for sure.
it's
It
just not
doesn't
a
feel
good
right. It
look.
feels dirty. It feels really dirty. It really does.
It's not a good look. You have 3 PlayStation Plus tiers now with the latter tier, the most expensive tier, a cash grab pretty much. Then you have these $30, $10 upgrade paths to get the most optimal version of a specific game that you already own. These things just keep popping up and it's not a good look for Sony. I'm a little concerned about that more than I'm concerned about how, you know, they're going to deal with Microsoft's first party acquisitions and all that stuff, because none of that ever really bothered me. What's bothering me is sort of the reputation that they're fostering by doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
That bothers me more because we're always going to have great games on Sony,
Yeah.
in my opinion. The games are
Yeah.
bar none way better.
Yeah. Very anti-consumer. Very anti-consumer for sure. I
Exactly.
agree.
Anyway, with that being said, we can move on to our next topic, which is the Bloodborne 2 knockoffs, for lack of a better word. So there's a bunch of games going around right now. One is called, I'm going to totally butcher the pronunciation of this, but it's called Thymesia, I believe. Then there's another one called Lies of P. And then there's a third one called Steel Rising, which is from the developers that made Greedfall most recently, which I actually played a little bit and really liked. It had some charm to it, I will say. So these 3 games are all very obvious, and I don't think it would be a disservice to say this, and I think they would be happy to admit, very obvious Bloodborne 2 uh inspired, let's say. I think all 3 of these games look, feel, and act like and play like they could be related to Bloodborne in one way or another. As Bloodborne is one of Vinny's favorite video games, as we found out last podcast, I figured this would be a good topic for him to sort of talk about. And I gave him all 3 games to look at. Some of them were a little bit more in depth than others, but what did you think of each of these? Let's start with well, approach it however you want. Just what did you think?
Oh man, I have a lot to say on this topic because, like you said, Bloodborne is has a very special place in my heart. It really does. That game is so good. It From Software, in my opinion, that's their best game to this date. It is so good. I'll a lot of that has to do with its setting and obviously its gameplay. I'll start off with this. I think all three games have pros. I think all three games have cons. I genuinely believe that. I'm curious to see how these end up being. I'm not 1,000% sure on release dates with these games, but I'll go ahead and go. Let's go one by one. Let me go ahead and read these one by
I
one.
will say, Steel Rising is supposed to come out in September.
Oh my
I'm
god, it
really
is. That
nervous
was the
about.
game that I thought was going to come out in 4 years. It looked
I
unfinished. Okay, I'll talk about that in about 2 games, I guess, from now.
just talk
But
about that
man,
one
that's
first
very
since I brought
surprising.
it up. Just go ahead,
Okay,
talk about it.
Steel Rising, right?
Yeah.
This looks terrible. This looks really bad. I have no. This was the one that of all the three that I watched, this one I have no sort of no want to play this game. This game looks really sort of. It looks like it doesn't run well. It looks very stiff. It's also Steel Rising.
Yeah.
Terrible name for a game, but I did see a few. From what I saw a few fights of this game, and you're fighting robots. It was like a robot, and then there was a bigger robot. I have no one. There's something about fighting robots to me, and I don't know about you. That's very blah, very sort of just not very exciting.
Did you play the
From a
Surge?
character, I didn't play the Surge.
Me neither. It's not a setting I like either, to be honest.
It's just I don't know what it is about fighting robots. It seems very copy and paste to me. It just doesn't seem very exciting from a development standpoint. There's something about it that just really didn't. I don't know, didn't grab me from what I saw about that game. What are your thoughts on that game in particular? I'm curious because I got to be honest. I watched. I mean, from the video that I watched, it did not look good whatsoever. I do not plan on picking this one up. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's so like I mentioned already, this is from the I think the most well-known developer out of the three games, which is kind of unfortunate. It's from the people that made a game called I think it's called the Technomancer, which got very terrible reviews. It was very poorly received. But then they made a little gem called Greedfall, which is kind of like those old BioWare games, Knights of the Old Republic, maybe some of the earlier Dragon Age games, and it kind of emulated that same feel, and some gameplay elements were reminiscent of that. It was a good. I played. I didn't beat it or anything, but I got through the first act, I'll say, and I really enjoyed it. It was sort of comfort food for that type of game, that type of BioWare game, and to see them put this out in the public eye. Now, maybe it did say it was alpha footage, what I saw at least. So maybe they're just a little overexcited and they just wanted to show the game and they showed it a little too early. But from what I've seen, this game looks like an absolute mess. There's no real ambient sound or anything like that. The sound design needs a lot of work. The animations look really, really rough around the edges. They look, like you said, very stiff. And the gameplay just doesn't look fun. It looks like it's a trying to copy Bloodborne. It doesn't look like it's bringing anything new to the table. The fans were kind of cool. I will say that. That was kind of. Did you see the fans?
Yes, I did, and that was the only
As
cool element. I
that was
agree.
kind of cool, and the
Yes.
menus were nice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those are the
I
two
mean, you're
biggest.
really grasping at straws
I
here to find
really
something
am.
good
I'm
about
trying to
this
be
game.
optimistic.
The menus were nice. The menus were nice. That's our positive takeaway from Steel Rising. Watch, Steel Rising is going to come out, and it's going to be just as big as Elden Ring. It's going to be a huge, sensational masterpiece, and we're going to be sitting here with our, like a bunch of morons. But
I
from what we saw, man, I couldn't agree with you more. That this game looks unfinished. It looks like it needs another, my goodness, 2 years of development time at
supposed to
least.
come out in September.
There's no way. There's no
I
possible way.
know.
It'll be early access in September. There's no way this game is coming out to consoles in September. I would be
Ah,
shocked.
and that was a delay. I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive it's supposed to come out in September, and it got delayed to September. Sorry for the
It was
typing,
supposed to
but
come out September last year,
no.
say,
Previously
or
projected for a June release, the delay to September is adding 3 months of extra development time for Spiders, the name of the studio. That's from the
wow.
sixthAxis.com. That is absurd to me because it does not look even close to going gold. It
No,
just
no,
doesn't.
it looked terrible. It did look like it needed, like you said, a few. I mean, man, a few more years. The animations looked really rough. The enemy design, like the character models, didn't look good whatsoever. No desire to play this game for sure.
Okay, so the next one is Thymesia. I'm probably saying that wrong. Please don't comment about it. But what do you think of this one?
Okay, like I said, these all have pros and cons. I think from a pro standpoint, this definitely looks like the most finished of all the games. This looks like it's ready to go. This looks like it's about to be released. I don't know the release date of this game. I'm assuming it's at some point this year if I were to guess. I don't know. It looks This one looks pretty good. I got to be honest. I think from a gameplay standpoint, this looks the best. This runs the best. This is the most fluid. This is certainly just this man. It really is. The problem that I had with this game when I was watching these videos is it wasn't Bloodborne, and as stubborn as that makes me sound, it just isn't Bloodborne. It looked like a knockoff version of Bloodborne,
Yeah.
and it's sad that I said that in my mind. I'm like, man, like this just doesn't look from a setting perspective what I would imagine Bloodborne 2 looking like. This looks more like Bloodborne 1, maybe like Bloodborne 1.1, from a just from a setting standpoint. I think that's what made Bloodborne so special in my mind was its environments. This just looks like, from an environmental standpoint, not very impressive. I do think that some of the enemies that you were fighting against actually look pretty cool. If I'm being honest, I'm actually very curious to see how this one does because from a gameplay standpoint, from an enemy sort of AI standpoint, it looked pretty cool. Again, nothing really that I'm saying, oh my God, I need to go get this game. Nothing in particular. But I do think from a gameplay standpoint, this looks really good. But everything else kind of, looked okay to me.
Yeah, so how I ended up coming up with this topic for this episode was they released a demo on Steam for this game. So a lot of the gameplay started circulating around YouTube and other sites like that. Uh, so this game comes out in August, and like you said, I think you're dead on. It looks the most finished out of all three of the games that I presented you with, and I think it looks really interesting. There's a mechanic in the combat system where the enemies pretty much have two health bars. They have like I don't know what they're calling it, but there's a I don't remember the color, but it's either I think it's red. It's a red health bar, and then you hit the enemy, and it reveals their green health bar, and then you have to use like a plague attack to get rid of that green portion of their health bar, or it comes back. So it's almost like a reverse, like you're playing against yourself in Bloodborne because you can heal in Bloodborne if you attack. So it's almost like the shoe is on the other foot and you're having to fight enemies that are like that. So I thought that was a pretty cool concept. And the whole idea of this world that has a plague and you're weaponizing the plague and using it to your advantage, I think that's really cool. And then there's also something where you can actually take an enemy's attack and like save it and use it later in the level. So that's kind of cool too. It's like
That
a
is really
expendable
cool.
thing. Um, I think this game looks cool. What would be interesting to me is if you picked up you have like an Xbox controller that you could hook up to your. Ugh, I hate to say Xbox controller because I love the PS5 controller, but you have a way to play it on a controller on your computer, right? Or you don't?
Yeah, I would for sure. Maybe I'll
Okay.
get some first impressions out there.
Yeah, maybe you could. I wish they just released the demo for PS5, but you know, in the meantime, maybe you could check it out and tell me what you think of the gameplay for next episode.
Yeah, I'll probably do that because I'm actually kind of curious to see one thing that I was thinking of when you were talking, because I remember I thought of this, is how powerful does this game let you become? Because a lot of those one-on-one fights with kind of those standard characters took a long time to kill them. I don't necessarily like that. I like the fact that in Bloodborne it's typically what, 2-3 shots to kill the
Yeah.
standard enemies, right? I don't necessarily enjoy, not to say that I don't enjoy it, but a lot of those fights seemed like they were very long for smaller characters. So, am I going to be able to go back to those areas? Am I going to feel a lot more powerful? Am I going to be killing them in one shot at the end of the game? Very Elden Ring like, which is fantastic. I love that aspect of Elden Ring, that you'll go back to the earlier areas and you're struggling with somebody, but now you're destroying them in one shot. How powerful does this game let you become? Because yeah, a lot of those earlier fights with those smaller characters had me worried, because I don't particularly enjoy long fights with smaller characters. That's not something I'm into. But is that something that stood out to you? I'm curious.
Uh, I really didn't pay attention to it in that perspective, but now that you're mentioning it, it does sort of make sense. You're saying with the 2 health bars sort of thing,
Yes.
it's elongating the fights. That could be, or we could be watching gameplay of people that don't know what the hell they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a
Good
lot of
point.
these games is learning and relearning and then learning again how to get better with the combat system that's presented to you. So it could be a combination of both of those factors. But uh, I don't know. That's a really good point, I think. So that brings us to our final Bloodborne 2 wannabe. Uh, they should just make Bloodborne 2. And I don't think it's happening,
Right?
Vinny.
What an
I'm
idea.
sorry.
What an
I'm
idea.
sorry.
No, they
I
will. They will.
No, I don't think it's happening. I really
There's no way
apologize
they
for.
don't. I will say this, with the success of Elden Ring, not to go off topic here. With the success of Elden Ring, I think Sony's more inclined to do so, because Sony owns that IP. I have no doubt in my mind we're at least getting a remaster of the first one. I don't think that's I don't think that's question.
Okay, but
But yeah, I think there'll be a
FromSoft isn't going to
sequel.
make it then.
No, I don't think so either.
So
I don't think so either.
Blue
Sony will
Point should
will get one
make
of their
it.
own
Blue
studios.
Point, the people that made
I
the Demon
agree.
Souls remake, they should make it.
Yes,
They should
yes.
get a chance
Give
to
them
make
the
their own thing.
opportunity. I agree. Yeah.
So the last game in our we're never going to get a Bloodborne 2 segment of the podcast is Lies of P. This game has some, I don't want to say viral, but some popular trailers and video on YouTube. Some very, various gaming channels have covered this game. Some of the trailers that have come out, but this game you play as, I think you play as Pinocchio, but it's the story of Pinocchio and Geppetto, and it's just that whole world brought to like a gothic style. Uh, I am really really excited for this one. I think it looks so freaking cool. What do you think of Lies of P?
Yeah. I completely agree. I think this is the one that stood out the most to me. In particular, I think from, like I said, with Bloodborne, I think of the environments. This game looks scary. It did. It looked like
Yeah,
a horror game in a lot of ways, which is Bloodborne. It just is. I know Bloodborne, the earlier portions aren't very, it's very gothic, but I think later on in the game you start, you start getting fearful. It turns into a horror game in a lot of ways. This game had easily the best environment. I really hope that some of the gameplay footage. Did they have a release date for this game? I'm just out of curiosity.
uh,
I didn't. Not that I
just at
remember.
first glance, it says TBA. Like just googling it, I was trying to look
Okay,
at the
so
release date for it, but I'm guessing early 2023.
yeah, that would be my guess too. I think this does need about a year or so, maybe even longer in development time, because I think from just the way that the game was running, it looked like it was slugging along a little bit when I was watching some of the gameplay elements. I think some of the frame rate drops were noticeable. And this is and Bloodborne I know runs at 30 frames, but coming after Elden Ring, there's no way that I could go below 30 or 60. I'm sorry, there's just no way. These games need to be running at 60 frames. The
Yeah.
combat is way too intense. It's way too much. You have to be running at 60 FPS. For these games now, I know that Bloodborne is my number 3 game of all time, and it ran at 30 FPS. I don't care anymore. There's no more excuses. Get these games to 60 FPS. This game looks like it was just chugging along a little bit, like it needed more development time. But man, it looked really good for sure. This was the one that stood out the most to me. Like I said, look, the character models were really cool. The enemies look scary.
Yeah.
It really did look, and I didn't even know it was Pinocchio. That gets me even more excited if
Yeah.
I'm
Isn't
being
that
honest with
cool?
you. I had no clue watching this. That when you were saying that, I was like, damn, that's actually pretty badass. That
Yeah.
actually gets me way more excited for this game. This is definitely one that's on my radar that wasn't on before for sure after watching those videos.
And I thought that too, that this would be one that you would when I saw the first video for this, I immediately thought of you. I was like, Vinny would definitely be into
Yeah.
this. It oh, the grappling hook looked, did you see that when he was on the
Yes.
rooftop? Oh
So cool.
man. Oh man, this game looks good. It looks really good. I don't know if
Yep.
they're going to pull it off. Uh, and if they don't, then that's all the more reason to hire whoever's doing the trailers for these games because that
Oh
guy's
my goodness.
awesome.
Yes.
He's making it look good. I think the game is making itself look good, but we'll find out very soon. But you mentioned something about frame rate, and it's almost like you read my notes because that was a perfect segue into our second to last talking point, which is a frame rate discussion. In this new era of gaming, we now have the option to favor resolution or favor frame rate. And I want to say about 95% of these games that we're playing. So on one hand, you have, like you were mentioning, you are way too used to the 60 frames per second and you love 60 frames per second and you can't get enough of 60 frames per second, but it lowers the resolution and you sacrifice some texture quality. And the trade off there is that you're sort of lowering the visual fidelity of whatever game you have set to performance mode is what they're calling it in a lot of cases. Now, this is sort of a push and pull. I think there's certain games that you can look up the details most of the times, but there's certain games that do not run well at all at 30 frames per second, and there are other games that do a fairly decent job of maintaining a constant and consistent 30 frames per second. Uh, I already know your answer, Vinny, but let's just let everybody else in on this. What do you think about this situation?
So I'm 60 FPS all the way. I've reached a point in my life, whether it be through maturity or old age, right? There is no way I can play a game if it's offering both ways that I'm going to play in 30 FPS over 60 FPS. I could care less about the pixel count. I could care less. I think the way that I kind of solve this, and I think you'd probably agree with me on this. If you go from when you're playing a game, you go from the 60 FPS mode. Let's just say you're playing Spider-Man. You play the 60 FPS mode and you go to the 30 FPS mode, right? You're kind of flicking between the two to see what you like.
Yeah,
Every single time that I've ever done that in a video game, my mind goes, "My goodness, why is this chugging along when I'm in the 30 FPS mode?" It just makes it so much worse. You really see why these games at 60 FPS are so much cleaner. I don't particular games that require timing, that require, you know, just 60
reaction.
FPS is reaction timing.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's exactly right. 60 FPS to me is just it's night and day. It really is night and day for me. It's not even like a debate in my mind, if I'm being honest. Obviously, I think it does depend on the game, though. I think maybe you'll have a game where you kind of want to show off the system, you want to see what it can do, and maybe it doesn't require that sort of twitchy sort of reflexes, so to speak, in your game, I think that maybe you go to the 30 FPS version, right? Maybe it's a card game. You know, that's a game that doesn't need 60 FPS.
But why would you
I
need
don't know. I was gonna
why
say
would you
maybe
need
the
a
card game
4K
has
card game?
exactly. I was gonna say maybe the card
That was a
game's
bad
beautiful. I don't
example.
know. Maybe it's a beautiful card game. That's probably the only thing that I could think of is a card game. That's how sad it is that I would maybe chess, maybe a board game. I don't know, something that doesn't require me to do something, you know? Maybe a turn-based strategy game, maybe. Even then I would probably take the 60 FPS version if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think you would
I think
too.
that's the only case that I could see it. Something like Horizon, something like Spider-Man. I mean, I don't even bother. There's no chance I could play those games 30 FPS. What are your
See,
thoughts?
now we've like I said, we've talked about this a lot off air, but I just wanted to say I think that it depends on the game. The first thing I do when I boot up a new game is I look to see what modes I can set it to. If they have, sometimes they have three modes. Sometimes they have like a ray tracing on, a ray tracing off, but you have the 4K resolution, and then they have like a 60 FPS mode. And then I'll also go onto one of those, performance type sites that sort of do benchmarking for that type of stuff, just to cross reference it with what the developers are telling me. And this is a lot of work that I have to do up front, just saying, Sony, like, so let's just get all our games running at 60 FPS 4K with ray tracing on. Can you do that? I'll buy a PS5 Pro if that's what it takes. But anyway, so I do all of this sort of research, and you come to find out there are certain games that it doesn't make a difference when you put it on resolution mode. The visual difference is so negligible that it makes absolutely no sense to not do the favor performance mode, because you want to have 60 FPS. You don't have to see the 15th button on the person's shirt necessarily. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
so that's to me, it's a case by case basis. There are other games that I believe were designed to show off the power of the PS5. The animations were designed around 30 frames per second, and they run at a smoother 30 frames per second because they didn't intend for the game to run at 60 frames per second. And to me, that's a game like Horizon Forbidden West. When you boot that game up, they don't have the game set to performance mode. I can't stress this enough. When you boot Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart up, they don't have it set to performance mode. When you boot up Spider-Man, they don't have it set to performance mode. All three of those games, when you go into the game, they have it set to resolution mode. Yes, it's because they want to show off all the hard work that they poured into this game from a visual perspective, but I also believe that they believe their games can run properly at 4K at this with ray tracing on and stuff like that in certain cases. I believe that I guess let me just throw it back to you. Why would they set these games to resolution mode if they wanted you to play in performance mode?
I think that you make a very valid point there that it almost seems like the developers want you to play in this 30 FPS mode. But I guess my rebuttal to that would be that I think that Sony knows and the developers know that the majority of that the people that are going to be playing these games are not hardcore gamers. I think they know that. The majority of the people that play these games are going to want to see what the console can do. They're going to want to show off their console to their friends. I don't think that they really prioritize frame rate, right? I just think that they're trying to go for a more general audience in that respect, and offering sort of, not to say that you're a hardcore gamer if you're playing at 60 FPS or not. It's not like that, but I think that those that actually care about frame rate, they're not the majority of who's going to be playing these games. It's just not. So you can get away with giving the general audience these 30 FPS modes when they put in their disc, and those that are hardcore and that'll probably review your game have that ability to go to that 60 FPS mode. So
I
I
don't
think it's a win-win for them.
I don't think they're getting away with anything though. What I'm saying is I think the games are fine at 30 FPS. You said I like the way you said it. The way you said it, it's like, oh, we're going to trick these people into playing in 30 FPS. I don't think it's like that. I
No.
think it's they like showing off the visuals that they worked so hard on, like I said already.
Yeah. And that was probably a poor choice of words. I don't think that they're
No,
trying to trick people into playing 30
no, you
FPS
didn't
modes.
say
I
that.
don't think so. I think that I think they know that the majority of people aren't going to care about frame rate. And the reason why I say that is because the majority of people that are probably playing these games probably don't even know what frame rate their games run at. They probably don't even understand frame rate, right? I think that that's probably the case here.
I
And that's just the way that I think that they're doing this for.
I think that, anybody that has their hands on a PS5 understands frame rate because they're an early adopter, because it's nearly impossible to get a PS5. And if you have one, it's because you really wanted it. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I see your point. I think what you're saying is that that's the angle they're taking it from, right? Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that the majority of people are not going to care about frame rate. I also think that a large part of this is because these are single player games. Frame rate in
Right.
single player games is just not as it's important, don't get me wrong, but it's not as prevalent as it is in multiplayer games. And Sony is typically a single player developer with their first party studios. I don't even think they make primarily multiplayer games. They don't. So which I think the FPS comes more into play with multiplayer. I think that we both agree on that.
Yeah.
But certainly I think we're in agreement there where they're certainly trying to show off what they worked hard for, and these games are gorgeous, don't get me wrong. I played Ratchet and Clank in 30 FPS mode for about 10 minutes because I was blown away by the visuals. Usually
Wow,
I wouldn't
10
even
whole
try.
minutes.
I know, right? Usually I wouldn't even try a 30 FPS mode, but I figured, you know what, I'll try this. And then you go to 60 FPS mode, and you're like, well, I'm never going back to that 30 FPS. Or there's no way.
Yeah. So
But I think that's a very valid point. Is I almost feel like, you know what, and this is going to sound very anti-consumer. Don't even give me that option. Just give me your vision as to what you want this game to be, because it's almost a headache trying to switch between these modes all the time. Because I'm personally always going to prioritize frame rate. You're not. So maybe it sounds very anti-consumer, but I
that's an
think
idea.
GT yeah, GTA is very well, not so much anymore because they had the next gen version, but I like the fact that there was no prioritized frame rate in some of these older games, the PS3 generation, the PS4 generation. We didn't have these options. A
Because
lot of me just kind of hopes that developers just tell me what you want me to play it at, and then I'll play it. And I'll be the verdict on that.
but this is the thing, how do you define next gen? Is next gen 60 frames per second on everything, or is next gen 4K on everything? Clearly there's some sort of fluidity there, you know what I mean? And I think that's part of the
Yes,
problem. We've never had hardware this good, so that's why you didn't get options like that, because the developers were just trying to figure out how to get the thing to run on the console, you know what I
exactly.
mean?
Yeah, they didn't have that option. Yep.
But I'll say two more things to wrap this up because we're spending a lot of time on this. The first thing I wanted to say was there are certain games that I agree with you. If you switch to 60 FPS, the game runs so much better. It's hard to go back. So what I will do is I will put it on 60 FPS for a few minutes just to see how it's running. Wow, this runs so much better. The character animations are so much smoother, et cetera, et cetera. Then I'll put it on 30 FPS. If the 30 FPS mode is well more visually stunning, then I will leave it on 30 FPS and I will never switch it back to 60 FPS because it takes your eyes and your brain it takes it a few minutes to adjust. And once you make the adjustment in your brain, I think 30 FPS is fine. However, not in a game like Elden Ring, not in a game of that takes Twitch skill. I think that the frame rate really does make a difference in how well you are able to play as far as reaction time, like we mentioned earlier. The other thing I wanted to say is I played a game recently all the way through on 30 FPS, and I think the game was made for 30 FPS. It was Guardians of the Galaxy, and I challenge you to play that game all the way through on 30 FPS because you will find it's such a narrative focused game that in my opinion, it was just way more enhanced by the lighting and the frame, the not the frame rate, the resolution, and there were so many little details and so many features that you just got out of the characters, in my opinion, that came through way more in, and I tried both modes, but it came through way more in the resolution mode. Uh, so that's all I'll say. For me, it depends on what game it is, uh, and it depends if there's a big upgrade or downgrade when you move from version to version. But yeah, I agree. It's overwhelming to have choices like that. Do you have anything else to say
Yeah.
on this before we move on?
No, just to reiterate what you said, which is it's very fluid. It's very dependent on the game. It just is. It's a game by game basis. I'm sure over the course of this podcast, we're going to have arguments over frame rate mode versus performance mode. I have no doubt in my mind because you know probably where I'm going to lean, and I probably have a good idea of where you're going to lean for certain games, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I think God of War is coming up, and I'm curious to see what'll happen there.
Oh
But
yeah.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm actually curious to see what what sort of modes they offer in that game. And yeah, man, I
Oh,
just think it's a case by case
that's going to
basis.
be a tough one
Yeah,
because that game is so gameplay heavy. At least the first one was, but it's also really story heavy. So I'm going to feel
I
like
know
I'm giving
it is
something
like
up.
your ultimate. It is your worst nightmare because now you're going to have to make a decision here. And I have a feeling you're going to be flipping between the two the entire game. It's going to be totally distracting, which goes back to my point. Just don't even give me these options. Just put the version that you want out, and then I don't even have to think about this because it's almost it really is. Because I think me and you agree, it's annoying having to think of these things. In my opinion, it's nice to have those options, but a part of me kind of wishes just give me the version of the game that you want me to play. I it can be very distracting, kind of deciding between these
I'm gonna
two,
I'm gonna
and
I'm gonna
detract from the
be a
game.
little annoying, and I'm gonna say, uh, if you didn't have the option, you would have uh, you would have played, in your opinion, an inferior version of Ratchet and Clank, an inferior version of Spider-Man, and an inferior version of Horizon Zero Dawn. And you're saying,
That's a good point. Yes, and that's why I say I know it's very two sided there, where I'm kind of talking out the backside of my mouth. It's just I wouldn't think of those as inferior versions because I wouldn't know that a 60 FPS version existed.
okay,
So that's
okay,
I guess that's where my mind is. It's almost like, dude, just give me the version that you want me to play. But I do like it's two sided there because I do like those options. I like giving consumers those options. I like being able to switch to my performance mode because I prefer performance. So it's a double edged sword there in a way. So you make a very valid point though, because I would have had no idea that there was better versions of these games if
right.
they only offered one. So
Cyberpunk,
certainly a good point.
Cyberpunk 2077. Play that in not resolution mode. Sorry, play that in frame rate mode. The resolution mode is almost, there's no difference at all, noticeable difference. And the game is, it chugs along, especially on the first iteration I played, which was the PS4 version. It was so bad at 30 frames per second, but when you play that game at a higher frame rate, the gunplay is so much better. So that's one example that I'll just, to close this out, that'll really hammer home your point, which is 60 FPS can make a huge difference, especially in that game. So the last segment that we have to close out the podcast is called For Your Consideration. So this segment is going to consist of Vinny and I suggesting games to one another, playing them, giving our review, and just having like a discussion about it. Just areas where games that we might have missed that we want each other to play. So we're gonna pick a genre, and we're gonna give each other games, and like I said, we're gonna alternate. One week, Vinny will give his quote unquote review, and the next week I'll give my quote unquote review. Now, I gave Vinny a head start on this one. He already knows, and he mentioned it at the top of the podcast. Crash 4 is his game, and he's been playing it for a week. But I'm gonna get my game in the genre platformer. So the genre was platformer. Vinny got Crash 4. I gave it to him last week, and Vinny's going to give me a game in about 1 minute. Right here. I don't know what game he's going to suggest, but I do know it is a platformer. And on episode 2, Vinny will give his review of Crash 4. In episode 3, I will give my review of this game. Vinny, what game did you select for me to play?
Okay. Good build up here. So I knew I had to choose a game that was difficult. When you think of platformers, I know you like difficult
Mm-hmm.
platformers, but I also chose a game here that also not only has an extraordinarily just difficult, it's not just the difficult game, excellent gameplay, but an amazing story. I'm going to give you Celeste,
Oh,
the
okay.
platformer. It is fantastic. I think you're going to really enjoy it. I'm looking forward to hear. I know we'll talk about it more during your review, so I don't want to give too much away. But I'm looking forward to you playing this game. I really think you're going to enjoy it. I hope so. And if you don't enjoy it, I think we'll have a good argument. So
Yeah. This game has been recommended to me a million times, and I haven't played it. So I'm excited. That's a good one. I'm actually really excited to play it. And if we weren't doing this segment, I
yeah,
probably would have never played it. So, which is sort of the point of this segment. Uh, okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into it. I think I played one level once of the game, but I have no idea what I'm getting into.
mm,
So we'll tackle
interesting.
that.
Yeah, good, good.
We'll
I'm
tackle that on episode 3. So Vinny, and this is gonna be the first episode where we don't have a review at the end because just of the way the timing is working. But Vinny, you said you played about 8 hours of Crash 4. Can I just get your impression so far because I'm so curious.
my impressions. Okay, I'll say a little without giving away
Okay,
too much. I
that's
guess right.
perfect.
This game is fucking awesome.
Nice.
I really have been enjoying it. I have a lot to say about it, but I think my overall thoughts on it so far is that it's awesome. It is. I'm so happy and thrilled that you recommended this game to me because it's a game that I definitely would have missed
Yeah.
otherwise. The, guys, more to come next week when I review this game because I have not beaten it yet. I think that this game gets better and better the more that you play it. I cannot say enough good things about this game so far. I definitely have more to say, but I'll leave it for next episode. But it is fucking awesome. If you guys have not played Crash 4, go play it. Go buy this game so that we get a Crash 5. So
Thank you.
um, that's a little sneak peek, but I'll definitely have more with regards to specific gameplay elements for sure next week.
Okay, so next week we should also talk about how uh, Crash Bandicoot, which was made by Naughty Dog, which is owned by Sony now, is a game that is owned by Activision now, which is owned by Microsoft.
Oh my goodness.
What a nightmare that is. So if we do get a Crash 5,
Yeah.
there is a 50-50, maybe even a 60-40 chance that we don't get it on PlayStation, which would just be an absolute nightmare. So that I think we could save for
Oh my
another
goodness.
episode. But I'm glad you're liking it. I had a feeling you'd really like it. What area are you at right now in the game?
So I'm about the fifth world. There's sort of these overworlds in the game, and I'm in the fifth. So, like I said, I'm about 8 hours in. I think I'm coming to the finish line here a little bit because I mean, there's so many levels in this game, and I'm curious to see how long it goes because I thought I finished it in the last overworld. I thought was the last one, but it's still going. So I'm thrilled because it's just gotten better
How
and
many
better.
masks do you have?
Right now, I just got the third one, so I'm three
The
masks
tornado
in.
one?
And
Okay.
yes, yeah, yeah, and it's awesome. The game, I can't wait to talk about some of these gameplay elements. I think it's gonna be a
Okay,
lot of
great.
fun because there's definitely, yeah, there's a lot to this game that, there's just so much to talk about with this game in particular.
Yeah, and I'm happy. I'm happy the reception has been good so far. Okay, guys, that is it. We are done for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. This is going to be sort of the loose structure, the working structure of the podcast, it will evolve. We will become better hosts. I promise you that. It's just going to take some time. We're working the kinks out still. We said that last week. We're saying it again this week. I am, at least, and we're going to say it again next week. Maybe we rambled a little bit here and there. Maybe we weren't as tight as we could have been, but we are determined to give you, like I said, the 40th best PlayStation podcast out there. No, we think we could be number one. I do. What do you think, Vinny?
Yeah, somewhere up there for
Yeah,
sure.
somewhere in the top 40.
39th at least. Don't say 40. 40 makes it sound terrible. 39th sounds a lot better than 40. So we'll say 30s.
We'll slowly climb up the ladder. We're 39 now. Maybe by episode 10 we'll be 37, and then you know what? World domination.
Creep
We'll
our
be
way up.
number one at some point. We will. I promise you that. We're
Amen.
coming for you, sacred
I'm
symbols.
all aboard. That's right.
All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day, night, wherever you are. And thank you for tuning in. Until next week, I'm Anthony, always joined by Vinny, and we will see you next time.
See you guys.